everybody. Welcome to our Zambia catch-up today. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us. We thought it would be a good idea just before the summer holidays, really, and bearing in mind that people are still getting quite last-minute inquiries, to just do a bit of a catch-up before sort of the summer holidays, certainly on this side. And also the team have been quite busy traveling out to various camps, so a good opportunity to ask about those visits and find out some information to help along. So that's really what today's about. It's quite informal. So joining me today, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Honor and I'm from Honor Way and have been working with Zambian ground handlers for quite a few years now. Myself, I lived in Zambia from 2004 till about 2008 and have since worked with various camps and lodges. And joining me today, we have got the Zambian ground handlers team. So we've got William, who has been working in the tourism industry since about 1996 when he joined Norman Car Safaris and Nick Aslin at the time in the Luangwa Valley. So he's been around for a long time. We've got Danny, who joined the team in 2018 from Zimbabwe after college and has been doing miracle work on the website and all the marketing packs that we've got, any information that gets sent out. And of course, Nick, who started off in Zambia many years ago and will tell you a little bit more about himself, but started Zambian ground handlers about 12 years ago now.
2009, so yeah, 13 years.
13 years ago. So yes, we're gonna go through their experiences recently, give you a bit of an update. So let's get started. In terms of questions, we have got the Q&A box at the bottom. So it would be really good if you could put any questions that you have for us in there. We are sort of doing it a little bit more as a question and answer session where I'll be throwing some questions as we go through their trip. So if there is anything that comes up, just pop it in there and we will deal with it throughout. We are taking a recording of this. So obviously anyone who wants to share this recording with their team members or hasn't been able to make it will be able to send over a copy of that in the follow-up. Everything else we will cover at the end. So thank you again for being with us today. So just to kick off, we'd like to just give you a couple of general updates on Zambia. So Nick, can you tell us a bit about the latest in terms of COVID-19 updates and travel to Zambia right now?
Indeed, thanks for that introduction, Honor, and nice to see so many people tuned in. Thanks for your time and attention today. Yeah, COVID travel, we still need to just touch on that, I suppose, but things are very easy nowadays. You only need to be fully vaccinated in order to come into Zambia, and if that doesn't occur, that doesn't apply to under 12-year-olds. And if there are any sort of teenagers that haven't perhaps been vaccinated, then that would revert to a PCR test no more than 72 hours prior to travel. That would get you into Zambia. But almost all our guests now have been vaccinated, and that's all they need to do is prove that on arrival in Zambia. And just a little hint to save you a bit of time at the airport on arrival in Lusaka, we have put a link on the back end of our website to a health questionnaire form, which is normally handed out on the planes before arrival in Zambia, and they like you to fill that one in and hand it in as you enter the airport. So you're able to download that form for your clients before they travel, and that's just one less thing they have to worry about on the plane and on arrival. So other than that, it's all pretty straightforward in terms of COVID.
Thank you, Nick. We just did have a question come up while we're on the subject. What happens if a guest turns out positive while at the lodge? What are the current conditions, obligations?
There are no legal requirements as to what you need to do if you are tested positive in Zambia. So it's common sense, really. You know, there are testing facilities around the country, but there's no restriction on domestic airlines or any restriction of movement whatsoever. So it's pretty much like it would be in Europe, I suppose, with common sense hopefully prevailing.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. So over the last few months, certainly the last year, we've covered quite a lot of what's new in Zambia. We've got several updates, webinars, which we can send you links for. But could you possibly, just for today, give us a bit of an overview of what's new for 2022 or was new for 2022 in Zambia, please?
There's a couple of new camps which we're going to be looking at in a little bit more detail this afternoon. There's Singani Camp in the bottom part of the South Luangwa. I was there a week or so ago, so we've got a little bit of a feature on that later. Olabisi is the new African Bush Camp, which opened just a couple of weeks ago in the lower Zambezi. There's also a camp, Puku Lodge in Livingston. And we are not absolutely perfect at Zambian ground handlers. None of us have yet been into that property, so it's not an awful lot we can tell you in terms of first-hand information about that. But we will be getting down there fairly soon to check that out, so that we can update the industry on what's happening there as well. So in terms of brand new camps this year, that pretty much, I think that pretty much does it. Be ashamed to miss out any, but I think that's about it on it.
Okay, great. Well, and also we'll be doing another webinar sort of in a few months' time, so then we can cover those ones that we haven't either been to recently, or indeed the new Livingston, or an update on Livingston, to be honest. So the team have today, for the purpose of today's webinar, the team between them have covered various places in the lower Zambezi, the South Luangwa, and Bengwelu swamps, where Nick recently had the luck to go up to Shoebill Camp, and so he can tell us all about that. But we're going to start off today in the lower Zambezi, where the team, minus one or two, got together for a sort of team getaway, brainstorm timeout. And so I'm going to hand over first of all to William, who is going to talk us about that lovely weekend and the stay at Zambezi Grand and Lower Zam.
Thank you so very much, Ona, and thank you so very much to everyone that is tuned into the webinar. We were so very fortunate to have stayed at Zambezi Grand in Lower Zambezi, such a beautiful camp outside the park. Amazing, amazing. I mean, the food, activities, everything top-notch.
And what do you think stood out for you on this camp? Because I think we visited before, but they've been through a big refurbishment quite recently, haven't they?
Yes, they did a huge refurbishment, I think a couple of years ago, and it is looking really grand, like the name says, Zambezi Grand.
What would be the closest airstrip for this one?
The closest airstrip, I mean, access is through Royal Airstrip, which is about 10-15 minutes away.
And how long, so the drive to the park, is there quite a nice drive around the camp area, and how long would it take to get to the camp?
That's a very good question, Ona. I mean, activities really, you can do game drives in the game management area. I mean, that is the GMA. It's really nice and quite scenic in the hills. But you can also do game drives inside the park. Usually it would be a boat transfer to the park entrance, and then you carry on to some portion of to some place where you carry on by vehicle and do a game drive there.
Brilliant. And what would you say would be a nice length of stay in this area?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, for Lower Zambezi, really 3 nights, 4 pushing it would be the minimum, I mean, the maximum stay, I would say.
Okay. Thank you, William.
Thank you.
So from here, we're going to move into the park, where Nick has just spent the weekend at Olabisi Lodge. Nick, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Honor. I was here on Friday and Saturday, just a couple of days ago. I hope that this video, along with all the others, are showing smoothly enough. Our internet connection here might make them jump a little bit, but that's why we haven't put sound on and we're talking over them. But Olabisi was very impressive, I think is the best way of putting it. It really is about as luxurious and well-designed a camp as we have in Zambia at the moment. The food was exceptional, really very, very good indeed. The guiding also, we were guided by a chap called Patrick, who's been in a number of camps around the Lower Zambezi, and I've known him for quite a number of years. Very good, very well qualified guide. So yeah, you can see hopefully from the pictures that we're showing. I mean, this is the lounge area between the two suites that we stayed at in. So 4 of the rooms are connected, 2 and 2. And then there's 4 rooms that are standalone units, so 8 rooms in total, and really just space everywhere, beautiful designs in all sorts of different areas of the camp. So yeah, I was very impressed with Olabisi. It's not a cheap offering, one wouldn't expect that, particularly in the Lower Zambezi, but it's very well located as well, right next to Jeki airstrip. So yeah, not too many downsides that I can report on Olabisi.
So African bush camps obviously have their predominant other camps in Zimbabwe, Botswana. They do have Thorntree in Livingstone, but what would you combine it with nicely in the South Luangwa, for example?
Well, I was actually talking to someone else in the trade who was staying at Olabisi this weekend, and she was explaining how different this camp and Thorntree are from most of the rest of the African bush camps portfolio. Now, being as we're Zambia specialists, I'm not as familiar with Zimbabwe and Botswana properties, but Thorntree and Olabisi are a notch or 2 above the most of the rest of their portfolio. So combining it with the South Luangwa, then I would suggest camps such as Chinzombo, Puku Ridge, and the Lion Camp. And then in Livingstone, obviously Thorntree would be a good combination, as would Tongabezi or Royal Chundu, exactly, in the camps of Meadow.
And just sort of just from we've had a question here saying, how would you combine it, for example, to Sausage Tree, maybe also Chiawa in terms of offering?
How would I compare it?
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, it's a brand new camp. It really is heavily designed and very, very beautifully done. There's air conditioners everywhere, glass fronted rooms and things like that. So it is of a slightly different style to the more traditional Chiawa, and Sausage Tree has possibly placed itself a little bit in between. So there's a new modern feel to Sausage Tree, but with these enclosed suites and air conditioners everywhere. It is a product that the like of which we don't have direct comparison to in the parks of Zambia yet. So it's an exciting new development, and some people would prefer the more rustic, more traditional style of camp. But there are people out there that are looking for this sort of level of luxury, and it's nice to be able to offer it now. Brilliant.
And then one other question is sort of, you know, the area that it's located in, what was that like?
Yeah, it's right next to Jeki airstrip, so in between Sausage Tree and the Tuscan Main or Classic Zambia camps, and then further downstream to Old Mondoro and Anabezi. Game viewing in that area, it's a very aesthetic area, big forests of winterthorn. We drove about 5 or 10 minutes to find 24 wild dog lounging in the shade, so that was quite nice. And everything else, it's in the heart of the Lower Zambezi National Park, so no concerns about its location at all.
Brilliant. Okay, and so from here we're going to move into the smaller camps that there are in the Lower Zambezi. Old Mondoro, an old favourite, but has changed over the years. What was this like?
Yeah, absolutely. It is an old favourite. Very hard to get availability in Old Mondoro traditionally, and as you can see here from the video, a completely different feel to what we just had at Olabisi. And this is the more traditional style that we've been used to for many years. And yeah, there have been a few updates and refurbs carried out in the off season, and there's actually been a film crew in there documenting the upgrades that were carried out at Old Mondoro. Wow. So it's very neat and tidy. None of us actually stayed there. My wife stayed there a couple of weeks ago, but we all went and visited it a few weeks back, and it's looking in great shape. It really is. So Old Mondoro is as good as ever.
And two other camps where Danny recently spent some time are the Tuscan Main camps. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, so I was at Katali over the long weekend in July, beginning of July, and it's again very different to the other camps in the Lower Zambezi. It's very authentic, very rustic, and you're going there for the experience more than the added luxuries. I mean, there's a bucket shower, you have to radio when you want hot water in your shower, so it's very special and like an old school safari, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And the guiding is absolutely phenomenal there.
And the locations of, because there's two camps, there's Katali and their other camp. Did you, when you were there, go and see the other camp as well, or did you just stay at Katali for this trip?
So when we were staying at Zambezi Grand, we did go up and see Chula and Katali, but I just stayed in Katali afterwards. I didn't actually spend time in Chula, but where Katali is, it's underneath the most beautiful, beautiful trees, and there are quite a few resident leopards in the area. So as we drove into camp, we saw leopards. As we drove out, we saw different leopards. So the game viewing in that area and the Olabisi, Old Mondoro areas, it is a stunning, stunning location.
And where in the South Luangwa, over the years, we've kind of got used to mixing up camps. Would you find that with the sort of increasing different camps, you've got the Tuscan Main, you've got Old Mondoro on one side, and you've got Sausage Tree and Olabisi Chiawa on the other level, would you see any merit in actually combining two experiences, maybe on different sides of the park here?
Why not? Yeah. I mean, the guiding is really great there. So at the end of the day, it's more the experience.
And Tuscan Main are quite often combining their two camps with a couple of nights in one and a couple of nights in the other. And I don't have a problem with that at all, if you want to stick with one company. Alternatively, you could combine with another camp in quite a different area of the valley, more akin, as you say, to what we do so often in the South Luangwa.
Brilliant. And so yes, and Chiawa and Old Mondoro are the same, really. They combine well together. Do you find lots of guests are doing both? Yeah, that's a common combination. And now that they operate Puku Ridge in the South Luangwa, we'll often combine it with that. And most of the operators will give you those long stay special discounts and things like that in order to encourage you to stay within their camp portfolio, and there's a lot of reasons why that makes sense, not only price-wise. Another question I've got, and I'd like to find out what your favorite is, but the joy for me of the Lower Zambezi is also the river activities, the joy of the variety of activities that you've got there, where you can get out on the river, you can do a bit of canoeing, you can do some tiger fishing and sundowners. What one would be your favorite, William, in the Lower Zam? Of all the activities, what is your favorite?
Strangely, I mean, everyone else doesn't like it. I mean, I love canoeing. It's not for the faint-hearted. You know, you are you feel so vulnerable floating amongst the crocs, the hippos in those little channels. It's really beautiful. That's my favorite activity in the Lower Zambezi, being on the river. No, you can't do that anywhere else in Luangwa. No, and it's a very peaceful activity because you're really at eye level there. Dan, do you like the canoeing?
I do, but I do have my eyes closed a lot of the time when I do it.
Oh. Nick, how about you? Do you get into the kayak when you're there?
Give me a gin and tonic and a fishing rod, and I just have to pretend to be fishing. Although I did actually catch a tiger fish this weekend. But the sundowner on the water, that's my activity. Thank you.
And at Katali, do they do river activities? Is it predominantly walking, or do they also do drives? What are the activities at Katali, Dan?
They offer everything. So you can do boat cruises, canoeing. So I really did everything. I did a walk in the morning. I did canoeing twice. I did game drives. I didn't do fishing because I do way too much of that. So I decided to do other activities instead.
Brilliant. One question about the Lower Zambezi in general that we've had is, do we have any news about the authorized mine project in the north of the Lower Zam and the consequences on the wildlife in the park itself? Where are we with that? Asks Laurent Guillaume.
We are nowhere really on that, to be quite honest. It's still being debated and disputed. Nothing has started yet. And with the copper price falling at the moment, I don't really see that it is going to be an issue in the immediate future. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but right now there's nothing happening yet, and there's no immediate plans for developing on that mine site. Yeah.
Gosh, fingers crossed, but we will keep everyone updated on that. Just before we move to the next park, I've got one last question going back to Zambezi Grand. Zambezi Grand is not far from Baines, both outside the park. It seems that Zambezi Grand is a bit more expensive. Do you think it gives it the value to justify the slightly higher price? What's the difference, do you feel, between Baines and Zambezi Grand?
Who wants that one?
That's from Marco Penzel in Germany.
Oh, Marco, that's a tough one. I don't know. It's not easy to say one camp's better than the other. Its location, I suppose. Zambezi Grand is closer to the park, although not an awful lot closer. And they both offer discounted sort of longer stay special deals and things like that. And I'm talking a little bit blind because I don't have the rates in front of me to know exactly what the premium would be for Zambezi Grand over and above Baines. But they are of a fairly similar feel and style, the two camps. I think that's fair to say. And geographically, they're located fairly close together too.
Great. Okay, thank you. So from the Lower Zambezi, we're going to head on to the South Luangwa. The team have been rather busy here. Not only did they go and visit the new Singani, they have also been to various places that have had a bit of an update and things like that. But also Nick recently went and saw the new site of Kukaya, which will be opening not long from now and is the new Bush Camp Company camp. So we will start off going to Singani. Please let us know what your thoughts were on this, and much awaited.
Yeah, no, that was me. I flew in there a couple of weeks ago and had a very nice couple of nights hosted by the Davey family. Singani, as you can see in the pictures here, a very, very spacious and well-appointed camp. It's right in the southern part of the South Luangwa, overlooking a big lagoon, very close to the main Luangwa River. The camp and the experience and the food and the presentation of their product was very, very hard to fault. It was exceptional. You fly in typically. We flew direct in from Lusaka, but it's quite a long, sort of good 3.5 hours drive from Mfui Airport. So they include a light aircraft flight from Mfui to the camp airstrip, which is just behind camp. So that flight is included in the rates. Because it is a very luxurious high-end camp, I believe that a lot of clients would choose to charter directly in from Lusaka or from the Lower Zambezi and out again, rather than perhaps scheduling to Mfui and then chartering down. But that's semantics. We can look at that on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, a beautiful camp. Here's some pictures in the main Chitenji area. Really, really lovely. Had a wonderful time down there. I was very interested to have a look at the area and particularly the game populations down there, because it's an area of the Luangwa that I hadn't actually been in for almost 25 years. And there hasn't been a lot going on down there. But the Davies have been in the area constantly for the last 3 years building their camp. They've very consciously been driving out and around the area to acclimatize the game. So I was impressed with the game that we did see down there, and the signs of wildlife as well as the stuff that we actually saw. So that was a big reason for me wanting to get in there and see that, and I was very pleased with what I found down there. So I'm happy to report.
Fab. And when you do go out on your activities, what kind of activities are they offering there?
As with most of the Luangwa camps, it's restricted to game drives and walks. They have put in a very interesting hide at a waterhole just close to camp. So they keep water in the waterhole, and you go sort of underground and you look out from the hide literally at water level. So you can look up at animals as they come in to drink, which is a very nice perspective. So that was good. And there's more and more of that in the various camps around the country now, in terms of giving people an opportunity to keep themselves occupied for an hour or so in the middle of the day between activities and just park off in a hide, which is lovely. Brilliant.
And did you get a chance to go out on a walk here as well?
I did not walk, no, not from Singani. I was guided by Michael David, who's an excellent guide. He's been guiding in the Luangwa for a number of years now. I was more interested in covering territory and understanding the area a little bit better. So I opted just to go out with him in the vehicle. And he took me to their bush camp, which is Qatari Camp, which is just, it's only sort of a couple of kilometers away from the main camp. So I'm not too sure whether I would be so keen to combine those two camps as you do with a lot of other operators in the Luangwa. But Qatari is a lovely alternative to Singani down in that area as well.
Okay, thank you. And by all accounts, Michael Davey is also a fantastic photographer. So it is good for those people that want to, share that experience as well.
He is indeed. There were quite a number of his images adorning the walls of the camp. So yeah, I can attest to that.
All right then. So, and just one last question. There's obviously a lot we can cover for each of them, but who would you combine this, and how would you really combine it if you were to do a couple of multi places, multi camps in the Luangwa to fill up that experience?
This area down in the south and the camp and the whole experience that you're going to get at Singani is quite different from anything that you're going to add to it within the Luangwa. So you really could, from an experience point of view, combine Singani with any of the camps in the South Luangwa. From a price point perspective, you're going to be looking at your Time and Tide, your Robin Pope, Lion Camp, Bush Camp Company, that kind of stuff. All of those camps will combine very well with Singani.
And then would you do the flight back to Mfui, or would you make it a day drive? What would be your recommendation there?
Well, we drove up, we flew in, and then we drove up, and after Singani, I stayed with Robin Pope Safaris and a couple of their camps, and we were driven up in a very comfortable enclosed transfer vehicle by Singani, and it was an interesting drive. So yeah, it's up to the individual and when we put an itinerary together. But as I say, those flights in and out of Mfui are included in the rates at Singani. So you would probably opt for that option.
Brilliant. Okay, so moving on to the next camps, we Louis and Kukuli are the Time and Tide camps. Danny, is that you? Or Nick, is that you?
I think no, it's me. I go on lots of holidays. So I was here 2 weeks ago as well. And this video at the moment is Louis. So I was very keen to see this because it is a completely new and changed Louis Bush Camp. So as you can see here, it's a tented camp with open air bathrooms, very spacious, lovely carpets in there and little accessories. Now I think we've moved on to Kukuli, in fact. So yeah, these images are of the rooms at one of the rooms at Kukuli. But yeah, Louis, totally newly designed camp. And Kukuli and Machenja also had lots of new extra bits and bobs and design features, and the furnishings and everything were all new in all three of those camps, Louis, Kukuli and Machenja. And really Time and Tide have excelled in the off season and last year. And these camps, I was running these camps myself in the 90s and 2000s. I know them intimately. And I think it's fair to say, particularly this camp we're looking at now, Kukuli, I have never seen it looking as good. It really is. It's in great shape. And I didn't film it, but there's a hide just below where I'm standing, having taken this little footage, and it overlooks that waterhole in front of camp. The main Luangwa River is on the right-hand side of this image. But it was a cleverly designed hide. They put a couple of sofas in and some comfortable cushioning, and so you can sit down there in the cool of the day because it's underground essentially, so it is cool. Read a book, park off, and then when you see something come into the waterhole, you can go and get a closer look at it. So it's a well-designed hide. They've done
Brilliant.
well.
Louis, definitely. Louis is the first camp that I ever went to in the South Luangwa, so it's quite a transformation. But do you still have the lagoon not far from Louis and the wandering around it and things?
Yeah, the Louis Bush Camp site remains the same. They have extended it a little bit so that the tents are now quite far apart from each other. We used to squash everything in underneath the one grove of trees, but they've moved it out onto the Louis River bank and with some lovely views that come with it. But yes, Louis Lagoon is still in close proximity and is what brings so much game to that area. And so again, game viewing from camp is often quite rewarding.
And I do, the walk actually from Louis to Kukuli, Louis and Solo, wasn't it? And then Solo then to Kukuli, and then you had to sleep out somewhere along the way. It's a fantastic walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. And in terms of the stays, if you were to combine Louis and Nsolo or several of, let's say, time and tide camps, or indeed with others, what would be your average stay if you're doing multiple camps? What would you recommend?
I think a couple of nights. No one ever likes one night stays. They're all a little bit rushed. But with an operator like Time and Tide, where they've got 4 bush camps, all, as you mentioned, could be combined with a walking transfer. So, maybe not 2 nights in all 4 of the camps, but if you're going to combine 2 or possibly 3 camps, then a couple of nights in each would really be a very well-rounded safari experience.
And William, seeing as this is your old stomping ground, it's quite amazing seeing the transformation in the camps. Do you have a new favorite?
Interestingly, my favorite at the Norman Car Safari camps then, where it's Time and Tide now, Louis being a traditional, typical South Luangwa bush camp was my favorite. It's quite a huge transformation. When I saw the images when Nick came over and shared with us in the office, I was like, okay, so it's gone tents now. It used to be thatched walls, grass walls, like in Solo. So yeah, it's a huge transformation.
And Kukuli, of course, has got the lovely views where the Louis sort of river comes out into the Luangwa River. So it's quite a nice area to watch that game congregating in the hotter months as well, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it is really beautiful. I mean, how Norman had appointed all those camps along the Louis River, it's just amazing. I mean, you start walking from inland, from Louis Camp itself, for those that are keen from walking from camp to camp in Solo and then finishing at Kakuli, which is right at the confluence. It's such a beautiful thing.
One other question I just wanted to ask is obviously with companies, companies having a number of camps, it is very easy to sort of do a nice itinerary within a company, but it's also quite nice changing areas. So what would you suggest is a nice combination maybe with Louis and Kukuli outside of the Time and Tide camps as a nice interesting itinerary for people wanting to mix it up? Anyone?
I'll start. I mean, being rustic camps, I mean, I would combine Louis with Mwamba, one of the Shenton camps. And I would also combine that with Kuyenda, the BCC camp in the south. Okay. I mean, they're all rustic and similar in structure. Yeah.
All right, then. We have got quite a lot more camps to go through, so let's keep going. Big Lagoon. This has replaced one of the remote Africa camps. Nick, which one? Crocodile Camp has it replaced?
Yes, so they've moved it not too far, and it's now on an old site that was run by National Hotels 50, 60 years ago. I think John Coppinger, when he took me there last week, told me that he'd first I might be betraying his age now, but I think he first stayed in Big Lagoon sometime in the early 60s or something. So yeah, and they've now built this beautiful, very rustic, traditional Luangwa bush camp with a very nice deck overlooking the lagoon, walking only. The two Chikoko Trails camps operated by Remote Africa Safaris. There are no vehicles in the area, no roads have been graded, so they are walking only camps, and remain as special as they always have been. So yeah, really, I was very impressed with Big Lagoon. It was lovely.
Great. And just again, what would you combine this with Tafika, or can you indeed also combine it with other areas, because they're in quite a remote area themselves?
They are, and I think Remote Africa Safaris, possibly more so than any other operator in Zambia, is worth sticking with once you get under their umbrella. And so to start at Tafika and then go out to one or both of these walking camps, and then from there possibly get in their plane and pop up to one of their two camps in the North Luangwa, and then, as I did last week, to extend even more and go on to the Bengwelu swamps and to Shoebill. So they've got a great circuit, a lot of variety, and absolutely no reason not to get stuck in and stay with the one operator for a week or more. So yeah.
And if you were to indeed combine it with somewhere in the Lower Zam, what would you combine it with there?
I think particularly these walking camps, the general feel of Remote Africa Safaris is probably going to combine very well with classic Zambia, the old Tuscan main camps, Katali that Danny was talking about earlier. You're really feet on the ground, excellent quality guiding, and it's all about the safari experience rather than the glitz and glamour in the camp, as we saw at Olabisi and some of the other smarter camps. So it's more experiential, if we can use that word, but not dissing one or the other. But yes, I would say that Remote would combine very well with the classic Zambia camps in the Lower Zambezi and also in the Kafue.
Brilliant. Okay, going from Big Lagoon on to the next one, Puku Ridge. So we're going from one area right down to the other. Puku Ridge opened in 2019, didn't they?
Yes, they did, after they had closed for a huge renovation. I was very lucky to have stayed there this May with my colleague Gerald. We loved it. I mean, to borrow Nick's phrase, it's glitz and glamour. It's really beautiful. You can't fault it in any way. I mean, they have a lovely swimming pool. Some rooms have plunge pools. It's on all fronts, really. It's an amazing camp. In comparison with other camps in Luangwa, I mean, luxury is really up there. I loved it because for me, that love sleeping out, they have a sleep out within the room. So that was really amazing for me. Another interesting factor is they have a height below the deck. I mean, they have a water hole in front of camp. During the drier months, they pump water in there, and you sit eye level and take your shots. It's really beautiful.
I'm trying to think where else has a sleep out like that under the stars, other than obviously Time and Tide's sleep out in the riverbed.
The other camp that has a sleep out is, you are going ahead of me now.
Sorry. Okay, let's rewind that question. We'll save it.
Okay.
Move on to it.
Another one is Tukuntu. They have a beautiful stargazing platform where you can sleep. It's really nice. And Kafunta also have that.
Okay.
Who else? Shenton Safaris have Nubu and the elephant, is it elephant hide? Elephant star, yes, I mean, it's really beautiful. So
I think we'll have to do a newsletter on sleep outs in Zambia and update everybody. So at Puku Ridge, you enjoyed the sleep out there, William. What about the food? What was the food experience like? Did you do any bush lunches, sundowners? What were those experiences like there?
Food, I mean, we did one night there. I mean, special sundowners. It was beautifully set up on the confluence of the Mishilashi.
Oh, wow.
We loved it, Gerald and I. Beautiful, specifically done for us. The food was out of this world. I mean, I cannot fault it.
Great. So moving from Puku Ridge, we're going sort of back up again, aren't we, to Tukuntu? It's not one I've been to, so I'd love to find out a bit more, because this has also gone through quite an upgrade, hasn't it, or refurbishment recently?
It is actually basically a new camp, Ona. I think it opened a couple of years ago. It is not in the central Mfue area. It is slightly below Kakuli in the northern sector of the park. Basically, it is the first camp you would go to if you are heading towards Kakuli, Mchenja, the Lion Camp in that area. And it is the site itself, close to the Big Bend. It's a beautiful site. And game in that area is also quite good. I mean, activities are mainly game drives and walks. It's in a good, rich walking area. Really beautiful. And of course, I already mentioned about the sleep out. They have the stargazing sleep out, which people can book and just sleep under the stars or sit there and watch the sun set.
Fabulous.
For your GNT.
And again, it would be walking and driving like with the other camps. From Tukuntu, we're moving on to the next camp, which was this one. And Nick recently visited the site of the new Bush Camp Company camp. Nick, please tell us a little bit more about this one coming soon.
Yeah, Kukaya, just artist impressions at the moment. The camp is built, but they haven't had photographers. I think there was a photographer in last week, actually, and I was there a couple of weeks ago. It's very large, well-appointed rooms with individual decks. It's a slightly different concept to anything that we've got in Zambia at the moment, because what Andy from Qatari Lodge and the Bush Camp Company is trying to offer here is a kind of stripped down safari, if you like, so that you can constitute it yourself, and meals are purchased on site and served either in the boma or in your room itself, and you can essentially add activities to your accommodation package. So you buy a simple accommodation package, and then you book activities, game drives, walks, and buy meals while you're there. So it is a very new concept. I think it's still bedding in, and they're still working out exactly how it's going to work. But I think for 2023, it will be an interesting new addition to the offerings in Luangwa and in Zambia as a whole, because it hasn't been done before. So not too much more to say on that one today, but watch this space. I think it's a very interesting new development. And it's just as you enter the South Luangwa on the Mfui Lagoon, so only a few hundred yards from Mfui Lodge itself.
Got you. Okay, we'll watch this space. We'll look forward to finding out a bit more about this one. And then from here, we are going to go up to the Bengwelu swamps, which is still very much high on my hit list. Nick, you've just been up here. This is a remote Africa offering, Shoebill Camp.
Yeah, we went from the remote African camps in the South Luangwa up to Shoebill. Yeah, phenomenal. It's just totally different from anything anything else you can do in Zambia. The swamps, you're punted around the swamps by boat. Fantastic birding up there. Quite a lot of different species that you won't see on a safari in the rest of Zambia. It's actually in the Congo watershed basin, so the waters here drain into the Congo and into the Atlantic Ocean, rather than the rest of Zambia draining into the Zambezi and out to the Indian Ocean in the east. So yeah, the shoebill, quite a bizarre bird, and lots of other bird species to look at. There are people, fishing communities in the area, so you do see other people, not other tourists though. There are no other camps and no other tourists. So that's quite special. It's not for everyone. It's a unique and quite a specialist safari experience.
And in terms of activities, would you predominantly be walking, or how did you get out and about, and how did you get to see the Shoebill?
You basically punted around the lagoon, the swamps by boat. There's large open lagoons full of water lilies, and then there's small channels going between beds of papyrus and reeds. And then there's a huge big plain to the one side of the swamps, and that is full of black lechwe, endemic black lechwe. So you fly into an airstrip that is on the edge of that plain. They've also reintroduced cheetah. So very interestingly, we went and picked up a chap who had a locator device and everything, and managed to find the cheetah because it was collared, and it's a research project. So we picked him up, and he took us to where the cheetah was, and that was very interesting as well. So yeah, a little bit of driving, but mostly in boats, being pushed around, doing some pretty special birding.
Brilliant. So what if you were to do this trip, would you sort of combine it with the Luangwa? How would you sort of incorporate this?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think combining with other remote Africa safaris experiences would be a very good place to start. This camp is basic. It really isn't the luxury that many other camps are offering around Zambia. It's basic tents, as you can see there. We had a problem with the video that I took on this camp, so I'm afraid it's stills only. So it is a very basic camp without the frills and luxuries, but it's the experience that you're going to Bengwelu for, and it's an experience that you'll not find the like of elsewhere.
And how I've only seen the Shoebill at Lake Albert in Uganda. We went out a couple of times. How hard did you have to work for your Shoebill? Let's put it that way. I know that's a bit of a random question, because obviously it's a question of luck.
No, not random at all, because normally one would expect Shoebills to be closer to the area of camp earlier in the season, and the later in the season, the drier it gets, the waters recede, and the Shoebill likewise recede. We were rather lucky because they've got essentially a tame Shoebill called Martin, who lives at the edge of the airstrip. So as we got off the plane, we saw a great big wingspan as Martin was sort of disturbed from his perch and flew off a little bit. So we got nice and close with Martin, but we then saw a couple of other Shoebill in the swamp. So but he was great. You get nice and close to him, and they're setting up a research center there where they're going to be incubating eggs and raising more birds like Martin. So it really should be easier and easier. You shouldn't be going to the swamps and not coming back with some good Shoebill imagery. God, amazing.
So a question that we've got there is, in terms of flying either onwards to Mfui or back, would you always have to come through Lusaka, or do Remote Africa also have some flights that will combine their camps with Shoebill direct without avoiding?
They do. Remote Africa have their own fixed wing planes, so they combine all of their camps in South Luangwa, in North Luangwa, and here in Bengwelu. They combine them internally, essentially, with their own planes, so making it very much easier to put the trips together.
Great. And then anyone that wasn't necessarily combining that they would have to fly via Lusaka, or?
Mfui is probably it's the shortest distance to charter in from Mfui. It's too far to drive to Bengwelu. Okay. But if we can get a plane that's priced out of Mfui, then that's the route we would take. We would schedule people to Mfui and then charter them up from Mfui.
Great. Okay. And the other question is, what would you say is the best time to visit? What is the season for this camp?
For Shoebill, earlier in the season, so sort of May, June, July is preferable to August, September, October, because there is more water around and it's easier to get around the swamps, and the birds, the Shoebill, are closer to camp.
Brilliant. Okay.
It is open throughout.
Fab. Okay. Well, I mean, we could go on and on, but those are really a selection of the camps that the team have visited in the last 2 or 3 months. What we've also been working on, well, to Mr. Danny's been working on it, but with suggestions is we often get the question of sort of how can I sell Zambia? I love the idea of it. So what we're trying to do is put together a media pack to try and help you in terms of media for newsletters. Maybe what what we'll all do is put some topics together, like I just said. Maybe it's good to have a sort of sleep outs of Zambia. But we've basically included more imagery. There is an awful lot on the website where you can indeed download even high-res images, but in this media pack, which you can get, which we will send out in the follow-up, is imagery that is not just for newsletters and website, but also for social media. Danny has been amazing at setting up videos for Instagram and TikTok, as we all know, or maybe not actually. All videos on Instagram will now be sort of into reels, so that's becoming quite exciting. So she's an absolute whiz at putting something together, so we can certainly work with you on any kind of social media campaign that you'd like to do for the destination. Plus, she's also put together a lot of camp fact sheets. Obviously, your input is really important here because we're trying to help you get people interested in Zambia. So, you know, anything that you think we could put together for you, other than what Dan's already done, would be really useful. And so, you know, we've got the fact sheet. So any questions or anything that you need, let us know. But hopefully this media pack will help you. I'm going to ask one quick question of our panelists today to find out a little bit more about why you think, William, Zambia is a perfect destination for someone who is a first-time safari goer. What do you think?
It is where walking safaris were born from. So anybody that wants a perfect safari, it's Zambia.
Thank you. Danny, what would you say? Why do you think Zambia is such a good destination? Obviously, we're all biased, but why do you think Zambia is an exciting destination over various other countries, for example?
Well, it's really got something for everyone. If you want adventure and adrenaline, you can go to Livingston, do whitewater rafting and bungee jumping. You can canoe in the Lower Zam, you can walk in the South Luangwa, and there's not really an age limit for Zambia, so families can come, honeymooners, elderly couples. It's really something for everyone.
Thank you, Danny. And Nick, what do you think on this?
Well, for years, I've seen people coming back and time again to different countries in Africa because they love the African safari experience, and they think they're still looking for something, so they come back again and go to different countries, and then they come to Zambia. And then they come back to Zambia, and then they come back to Zambia again. So that must tell you something. So don't waste your time with all those other countries. Just come straight to the best.
And my feeling as well is if you're quite outdoorsy, you like walking, you like birding, you've got specific interest, there's an awful lot. And the Lower Zambezi is very different from the South Luangwa, so they both combine very well as well. But we're here to help you, and so we will be running a similar webinar again probably in November time. I'm going out in October, and hopefully between us all we'll have seen a whole load more camps. But also I've got a couple more questions. One, we've had a question of, does Zambia have the big five? The answer is it does, but not in one area. So you have got white rhino in the Livingston area, you've got black rhino in the North Luangwa. So what would you do? What would you suggest on that side?
I would hesitate to offer rhino for Zambian safari. There are white rhino in the Mosi-oa-Tunya National Park in Livingston, but they're not indigenous. They were brought in, and it's a very small national park. It's not quite a zoo, but it's really not like having rhino in the wild. The project organized by Frankfurt Zoological Society in the North Luangwa to reintroduce black rhino is a very serious and very successful and long-running program. But even remote Africa safaris that have their camps, one of their camps in North Luangwa within the rhino sanctuary, they don't usually see them. They'll see tracks and things, but they're not normally able to show their guest rhinos. So unfortunately, not really. But yeah, they're there.
Thank you. We have also been asked if we offer German-speaking media material. I would say, unfortunately, not yet. I keep sort of thinking that we should try to do some language materials, but at the moment we're sort of focusing very much on getting all the materials together in English, and maybe down the line we can start looking at various languages. We've also had a lovely comment to add to why Zambia. Gillian has said it's still pristine and has the unspoiled essence of a safari in Africa, which is true. I think you can still get that authentic bush camp idea and feeling, and the walking is out of this world. So thank you for that. In order to also help sell Zambia, you know, we are getting an awful lot of last minute inquiries still. You know, they're sort of 3 weeks out. So what we've got is we've got our live availability on the website. We'll send a link in the follow-up, but it would also be good to just talk a little bit about the last minute specials that we've still got going on for the camps, and hopefully this will help you too.
Thanks, Anya. There are a lot of last minute great specials. Bush Camp Company is offering an additional 30% off if you book within 30 days of travel.
60 days of
60 days of travel. Olabisi has got a great opening rate at $9.90 rack compared to their rate for next year. And then also on our website, we've got a specials page, which is constantly updated with what is happening. And every time we do hear of a new amazing special, we do add it on. So because our 2023 rates have just been released, we will be adding 2023 specials to our website following this webinar. But if you do ever refresh it, just check it when you can, and you'll see what's happening in Zambia.
Brilliant, Danny. That's probably the most useful, certainly for anyone getting all the last minute specials. And as I said, you've also got the availability links, which will help you. But the team also, and I think this is something that we really excel at, is, you know, for an inquiry, they will always give you suggestions for other camps over that time, so that you definitely get a little overview to see what you could actually put together for the dates that you've requested. We have had quite a lot of questions throughout, so that is really us for today. We've done a lot of talking, but hopefully we've covered a lot of useful information. I've found, speaking to operators, that people like, you know, especially not many people have been to Zambia, certainly over the last 2 or 3 years. It's nice to know what's changed, what's new and improved. Are the teams the same, the standards the same? So thank you very much for that. A couple, anyone that wants to put in a last minute question, then let us know, pop it in the Q&A. We've got one from Marco that says, when's the next educational plan to places like Bengwelu, Lua, etc., which I'm desperate to do. I think the answer to that is it's very difficult to plan an educational trip because the cost comes up in the transfers, because it generally has to be chartered. So it's something that we're trying to do, but cost-wise becomes quite expensive. So I'm not really sure what to suggest to that one, Nick.
Yeah, you're always welcome, Marco. You know that. If we can find a cost-effective way of getting you into some of those more remote places, then I'll be sure to flag that up.
Yes, and I'll be jumping on that plane with you, like the last one in the North Luangwa, which was very amazing. We've had some really nice comments saying fantastically useful webinar. We've got one last question about horseback safaris. Have we, you know, we've got the walking, we've got the fishing, we've got the canoeing, we've got sundowner trips, all of those kind of things. Can you just tell us a bit about the horseback safaris in Zambia?
Well, we should have brought Nosisi in. She's in the other room, because she actually tried the horse safaris out that are operated by Chundukwa at Mahala, sorry, just sort of west of Livingston, and they do multi-day horse trips from their camp in the Samahala Plains.
Yeah.
Are there any others? I don't think in the Kikuyu they don't, do they? So that's the only horseback.
That's it for Zambia. Yeah, they have horses at Chundukwa. So if you're just staying in Livingston at Shoebill Lodge, you can ride out from there. But in terms of a multi-day camp with horses, then that's Samahala.
Fantastic. So just in terms of experiences that have stand out for you in all these trips, William, just very quickly, what was your highlight from your travels in the last 3 months? Doesn't have to be about a place rather than a destination. We don't want any favoritism.
I don't want to be biased, but sleeping under the African sky, listening to the night sounds stands out for me.
Brilliant. Danny, what was your best?
When we were in the Lower Zam, we saw 28 wild dogs, and it was amazing. They were so inquisitive, came up to the car, sniffing everything. Yeah, that was my highlight.
Gosh, that sounds incredible. What about you, Nick? What's been your
Well,
highlight?
I only saw 24 wild dogs when I was in Lower Zambezi, so clearly not that.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh, this weekend I saw 24. Skimmers flying at dawn, sunset and dawn in front of the deck at Big Lagoon Camp.
God, that sounds amazing. We have one last question, which is from Hafsa. It says, are you looking to incorporate a more immersive experience with your tours at some point? I think, you know, it would be good for you to answer that, but I do think that many places in Zambia have all got affiliations with a project somewhere. So there is always the chance to immerse yourself and learn more and get out into a village or a school, etc. But Nick, what do you think?
It is something that Zambia does very well, particularly I think in the South Luangwa, where William and I hail from originally. The amount that is given back and put it back into communities by the tourism industry in Zambia is really very impressive, and most camps are keen to show that off to those guests that are interested in terms of actually. You know, people often ask, they want to get their hands dirty, they want to help with projects. That's not so easy, but money is the biggest help that tourists can bring, and you know, you can rely upon your operator here in Zambia, your safari operator, to make best use of that, and then he's then able to show you the work that is done with those donated funds. So it is something that Zambia does very well.
Sorry, I'm just jumping in here. In the media pack, I have put a conservation manual. Yep. So
I was about to say the same.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Who does what?
Yeah, and that's a really nice overview. And again, Danny is brilliant at keeping that up to date. And it just gives an overview of who is doing what or supporting what, and indeed where clients can get involved. So brilliant. Well, thank you so much. I think that's all of our questions. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, William, Danny, and Nick, for joining me. And I can't wait to get back out to Zambia in October, hopefully. So we will look forward to seeing you all again in November. And if there is anything that you need from any of us, or indeed if you would like to go over a full Zambia presentation again, covering the Lower Zam, covering South Luangwa, then please let us know. We'll also look at covering a bit more of the Kafui again in October, November time. So thanks very much for joining us today, and see you all in Zambia soon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everyone.